Hello there and welcome back. In my last video, we looked at the results of a yearly survey conducted by the Levada Center, and something tickled me. So this video is a sort of follow-up to that one, links in the description below. In this survey, people were asked if they agreed with the statement that the so-called fake law would make information on the media and the internet more trustworthy. And looking at this graph, the majority believed that it would. However, when asked if they have noticed any changes in the content of the media they consume, the majority said no. As this graph shows, digging a bit deeper into the survey, when people were asked if they agreed that any information about the special operation in Ukraine that differs with the official sources is false, which is at the core of the fake law, only 19% of the respondents fully agreed with this statement. Let's take this apart a little. A government which has approval ratings close to 70% issues a law that has approval ratings of over 70%. But when the core idea enshrined in said law is put into a practical context by, for example, asking people if they agree with the statement that any information about the special operation that differs from the official line must be false, less than 20% fully agree. So how do you reconcile all that? You don't. You create little containers in your mind. In one container you put your belief in hierarchy and your position in it, and a firm belief that the established order should be supported, which is not uncommon in conservative societies such as Russia's. In a separate container you have a mix of mistrust of authorities and perhaps some experience and or understanding of how messaging works at time of conflict. Alright, that's fine for guesswork, but if containerization is prominent in a society, it should show up as a distance or a spread between values and practices in that society. The Globe project, luckily for us, did most of the work, links in the description below. And although the scope of their study has little to do with what I'm doing here, I can still use their results to investigate containerization. The Globe project came up with 8 cultural parameters, then scored them both as values held in a society and the implementation of these in everyday life or practices. And additionally, to make life easier, they grouped the countries in the study in clusters. The study was conducted in 2004 and 2006, so let's take the results with a pinch of salt. Societies do change over time. Alright, caveat out of the way, let's have a looky. Here I graphed the distance between values and practices across all the countries in the studies. The parameters with the greatest spread are power distance, defined as the extent to which the community accepts and endorses authority, power differences and status privileges, and performance orientation, defined as the degree to which the collective encourages and rewards group members of performance improvement and excellence. And here I highlight the parameters with the least amount of spread, in this case in-group collectivism, defined as the degree to which individuals express pride, loyalty and cohesiveness in their organizations or families. So let's zoom into the Eastern European cluster, which includes Russia and, to my bafflement, Kazakhstan. In this graph, Russia is the red skittle. All the values have been zeroed, and what you see is the distance of the practices from the values. Values and practices scores are quite close for in-group collectivism and rather distant for performance orientation, but not as distant as practices and values are when it comes to power distance. So let's unpack this graph a little bit more. In this graph, I show you the group average and Russia. Power distance score is low. Interestingly, human orientation, performance and in-group collectivism scores are high. The first two parameters put the individual first. The third puts the group first. Additionally, for in-group collectivism to work, generally it needs hierarchy, so power distance should be higher. Moreover, if the group values are dominant, then values associated with the individual, such as human orientation and performance, should be lower. Let's look at the practices side. And yes, as expected, with high-scoring in-group collectivism, we have high-scoring power distance, while human orientation and performance are lower. Now, let's move on to this graph and look at the spread between values and practices in Russia. I will say that there is at least a whiff of containerization. So let's relate what we see here with the results of the survey. Power distance and in-group collectivism are strong, and this can be related to support for the government actions, especially when the actions are framed as defending the group, as when information that contradicts the official line is viewed as undermining group cohesiveness. On the other hand, characteristics such as fairness and striving to improve oneself are believed to be important, and these require the individual to assess and sometimes be critical of the established order. And I would say, in our case, these values manifest in a high percentage of respondents not agreeing with the statement that if information differs from the government line, then it must be false. In group collectivism and parameters centered on the individual have a difficult time of coexisting unless they are placed in separate containers. So you can have a situation where, as part of the group, one must support the established order, while at the same time, as an individual, it is acceptable to be critical of said order. It is fair to say that we all do some containerization. We all hold beliefs and ideas that, when taken out of their boxes, cannot really coexist because they are mutually exclusive. However, if I show the spread for the US, for example, and compare it to Russia, you can see that the distance between key values and practices are far bigger for Russia compared to the United States. And because I just love my skittle graph, here it is one showing the distance between values and practices for Russia and some of its neighbors. So let's make some educated guesses and draw some conclusions. If we consider the results of this survey and others, plus the opinion polls conducted by the Levada centers on a monthly basis, I would suggest that Russians deal with holding incompatible beliefs by segregating them. This practice can lead to instability. It puts a strain on the mental well-being of the individual, and at a societal level, the state has to rely on increasingly coercive tactics to maintain cohesiveness of the group. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next with the results of the monthly opinion polls conducted by the Levada Center. Thank you again, have a lovely day, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.